So this AI talent market is unlike anything I have seen before. Is it Meta offers for real?
His reasoning to give such a ludicrous offer is they are going to invest maybe 200, $300 billion on the infra just to build out the foundation models.
Vinay Kumar is the founder of Arya.ai, an AI platform for enterprises. Arya was acquired by Aurionpro in 2024, creating real wealth for early employees who believed in AI before the hype.
Most of our initial team got rewarded really, really well. They were able to buy good apartments, kind of stuff. There is not enough skin in the game for people who has less than 0.1% initial ESOPs.
So I guess from what you are saying, learning is maybe you could have exhausted the pool, rather than just leaving floating.
Yes.
So in startups, everyone talks about valuation, but builders know that valuation really means nothing unless it's actually shared. So I'm Satish Mugulwalli, and this is Built to Share, conversations with founders who are building companies and sharing wealth with people who are building alongside them. My guest today is Vinay Kumar, founder at Arya.ai. He's building enterprise-grade AI solutions for BFSI companies. Welcome to the podcast, Vinay.
Thank you, Satish. Thanks for being here.
So this AI talent market is unlike anything I have seen before. Give me some street gossip. Is it Meta offers for real?
Oh, yeah, I think it is real. So we recently were interviewing a PhD researcher in Paris for our Paris lab. So the offer was reasonably probably 1x to 2x for a market standards in that Paris market, for example. They overcrowded with valuation and inflated the price. But now the inverse is also happening, right? Like Meta Labs is now consolidating, which means they are removing a lot of other researchers as well. They're back into the market, or many of them or some of them are back into the market. And it's quite hard for them to now go back to realistic numbers. So the inflation happened, but automatically the correction is also now happening to some extent. But the talent is very much appreciated, going for very good premium for the right set of skills. Again, it also depends upon right set of receivables as well, right? In terms of is it coming from the right lab and all that stuff. But the inflation is happening quite well. May not be as much as what Meta was doing 3-4 months back. It kind of corrected very, very, very quickly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, $100 million, is that really something? I mean, is this like cash plus Meta comp, given Meta is a listed company? What's the breakup? Because that sounds too good to be true. But I've heard it from many angles that there are these kind of offers being rolled out. And I'm not talking about the, $1 billion acqui-hires that have happened, right? A 15-member company and like a big, $1 billion type of acquisition. But Meta especially going and hiring people at this comp and at this rate. Do you think it stopped because they've kind of filled their team, or do you think it was just a momentary lapse of reason?
Yeah, I think I probably like the strategy that Mark has followed, right? So his reasoning to give such a ludicrous offer is they are going to invest maybe 200, $300 billion on the infra just to build out the foundation models or just to build any kind of new models. Even if you assume, let's say your capex cost is about $500 billion, and the fair bit of assumption is for any capex, your capex cost will probably about 30% of your expense, right, for your entire IP asset.
Right.
If they are expecting to invest $500 billion, they would probably put a value or ready to spend at least another 3 times of it, right, or 2 times of it bare minimum. That's their justification. So if they are going to invest so much in the infra to be able to build the IP out of it, they would rather try to get the frontier talent that is required to deliver. Compromising on that piece is, you're kind of risking out the entire investment that you made. It make a lot of logical sense. But is it timely is what probably the question that everybody would have in mind. Like, is it the right time to spend $500 billion or the commitments were around half a trillion plus in terms of compute spent. Is it timely? Is it aligns with what the models can deliver in the current scheme of things? Questions can be around that, but logically, it's a very, very laid out kind of plan. It's just that the speed and primarily the speed at which they executed that plan was what surprised everyone. Acquiring people, getting the frontier talent from OpenAI or Gemini, for example, that surprised each and every player in the market. Like nobody thought people would do it to such a speed. On the contrary, Grok or X also had done similar thing, right? But in a different manner. They didn't went that atrociously on human resource, but at least they did went atrociously on the compute spend, right? Elon buying a bunch of things. In fact, that was a realization that many people had. Like, if you have enough compute, you can scale the model. Now, Grok is one of the best models, right? So between 5 frontier models in the market, everybody is now trying to say how much spend or commitment spend that they can get approval for. So OpenAI being on the top, and then you have Meta, and then you have Gemini, Grok, and then Anthropic, for example. It's kind of consolidating. So it's not surprised to see that such offers will go. But again, these are offers. If I have to discuss on the offers, I may not know the exact to the dot details, but it's primarily 100 mil spread over 3 to 5 years in stocks with a signing bonus of double digit numbers, cash plus stocks is something is what being offered. But again, this is offered to probably 4 or 5 people, and 3 of them have joined, and few of them not yet. And for everyone else, a million paycheck is like a basic standard norm for many of the people who has joined the Meta Labs. But what's also is happening is, at least if I remember or if I know the numbers right, it's around 5-10% has already gone through attrition. Because you have built a lot of high skilled people in one group. Now, how do you create a hierarchy between them, right? Nobody wants to report to anyone. Nobody wants to get an approval for something. So that the org politics has now probably taken over. That's the word in the market, at least.
So Sam Altman said nobody is leaving OpenAI. So where are these people coming from? Where is Meta hiring these people from? Do they fit a certain educational background, certain type of mindset? Where are these people coming from?
No, I think people have joined from OpenAI as well. It's not entirely true that nobody has left OpenAI. I don't know if this is true. So somebody who demoed OpenAI, one of the product, joined Meta later on. It was that evident. So they were poaching everywhere and everyone. So OpenAI was one of the biggest sources for them. You had Gemini, Google DeepMind team. There were a bunch of people from there as well. I think Anthropic, very few. Grok, not many have moved from Grok, is what the news is. But there are a lot of other labs, like you have AI2, which is a half a billion, close to half a billion funded by Larry Page. Larry Page, I think, yeah. That's a good lab as well. So people have moved from there. And people have, Meta has started looking for people from different labs, not just from these large companies. There are a lot of new labs that established in the last 1 year, so they became really critical in producing research. They were also kind of taken care of as well. So it's a mix of a bunch of audiences, what I would say.
Okay. And do you see any structural changes in compensation for people who would want to hire these kind of people? May not be Meta, Google and so on, which are listed companies and so on, right? But what about a new frontier labs, which is looking for similar kind of talent? What does compensation structuring look there? Because even though they may have raised a lot of money, you probably are figuring out whether to spend on people or spend on GPUs, right? And where Nvidia is going, there's zero competition and there's no reason for them to provide any so-called deal for a startup as such. So you will have to still spend on compute, and you have now these new talents which can potentially be poached by any of these frontier lab companies anytime. So in that case, how do you structure compensation? What is cash? What does ownership mean in this context from what you've seen?
Got it. I think the founding team would always have the preference, right, in terms of how much ESOPs and how much percentage of that ESOPs will go to the initial team members. Most of the times, this is probably a proven engineer or a proven researcher from a prior model. For example, if you look at the Chinese, different frontier models today, right?
Right.
Like Moonshot, you have, and then you have a bunch of new guys. Like few months back, there was hierarchical reasoning model, HRM, a technique that published by Singapore lab. I forgot the name. So most of these people have worked in prior frontier model, like they have worked in Quen, and then they go ahead and then go and launch startup. To say, okay, I've worked in this frontier model, I'm part of a contribution there, and then I'll go and start a new company with, let's say, maybe 2-3 people from there. They'll get a major share in terms of how they define the equity between them. And then these guys will go ahead and start new engineers in the market to try to get the initial model to some shape. This has been the structure in Valley in the past three years. People moved from OpenAI, they started frontier model company, and then hired people. Whenever they're hiring people, the ESOP structure was so bad, very bad. In fact, that's why many people have started attrition. For the second level of hiring, right? So people moved very frequently between different startups. And as you said, there is also cash spend as well, meaning they have to obviously spend it on compute also, right? So if I have to create a formula, probably initial 35, 50, 40% of equity will probably for the founding team, founding engineers kind of distribution. And then for the second set of hiring, they keep less than 5% to dilute from an equity standpoint, because by that time the valuation will also go up, right? So they will have 5-10 engineers, they'll raise some monies, the valuation will go up to $100 million. Even 5% is about close to $5 million. Every new sign up will give them $500,000, for example, like that. Many of the startups have structured something like this. They get to a valuation jump immediately as soon as they start the entity and then start the lab, and they start hiring people with less than 5% or something like that for the dilution. If you look at the frontier labs like Thought Machines, for example, by Veera Murati, for example, right? The valuation again will start from $1 billion to begin with. So 5% is about $50 million. So everybody would be interested to say, okay, fine, even if I get 1% of it, which is again close to $500,000 and million kind of dollars, they can get into it. So as a strategy, it's important for everyone to increase the valuation if they're starting a new frontier company today. Increase the valuation as soon as possible so that you can afford to hire talent. And you spend the cash for compute or other resources that is required as much as possible to get to a stage where you can then fund a future fund for the future GPU usage, for example. That's why many of the startups have very humongous amount of valuation. The benefactors is probably the founding team the most. But also they are also putting a lot on the table as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned about something about ESOPs not being done correctly and which made people move. Can you kind of double click on that? What was not structured well enough for these people to stay back? What was the issue with ESOPs there?
No, I think the problem is ESOPs is valued post the maybe 1 or 2 rounds down the line, right? Initially, you will have a team which is on paper. You raise money, and then you say, okay, fine. Here is my 5% ESOPs, which is a value of $5 million. If you look at from a percentage standpoint, like I know many people who have joined some of these labs initially as maybe not the first hire. Because the first hire is the founding engineering team. Second, third hire kind of stuff. They get hardly 0.5%, or definitely less than that. And there is no revenue, there is no product, right? You are a very, and these are well-established engineers as well. These are not like, very beginners from that point of view. 5-7 years in the industry, well off, getting good salary from companies like Google or Meta or Twitter, for example. Now they were asked to take a cut on the salary a little bit, not much, but they will get ESOPs, higher value. But from a percentage standpoint, this is hardly 0.1% or 0.2%. if you are within that if you are part of the 20-member team, I would expect that my ESOPs is a little bit more higher from a percentage point, right? If not more, if not more for sure. So that's what has happened. People thought that there is not enough skin in the game for people who has less than 0.1%. This is 0.1% initial ESOPs, right? So which vests over 3 years. So you are getting like peanuts in the first 3 years. On paper, you may say that, okay, this is higher value than what your current salary is, but you are also taking a higher amount of risk. There is that's a gap that happened in some of these startups. This made a lot of attrition move. They say, okay, fine, I'll start in some good startup, and then they'll move to a second startup, which is maybe within 10-member team circle, where they would get a bit of higher percentages, right? A lot of them are using equity as a leverage. But what's happening is, because of valuations are so high, and the value is not as realistic as the risk. The equity is probably much smaller, is what I would say.
So is this because a large round was not raised when these guys come in? Because even if you talk about 0.5% or 1% or even less than that, if you're maybe amongst the top 50 employees in a $1 billion startup, you're still making enough money, right? Was this comment true for where the valuation has not been established of that kind? Maybe they're really starting out early, and at the percentages levels also you're low, and at the same time the valuation is also low. Is that what the math that
no? So all of this makes sense when there is a valuation stability, when there is a value stability, right? Meaning, okay,
Right.
fine, you are a $1 billion valuation, and you are in the game. Like for Mira Murati, makes sense. It doesn't make
Correct.
sense if it is anything less than, let's say, 10 levels down. You may still be a $100 million company, and ESOPs you end up with 0.5%, and you are 14th higher, meaning you are 14th employee, right? And there is no product, there is no model, there is nothing.
Correct.
There is just a $10 million cash in the bank, but valuation is $100 million, right? The risk is very high, is what I'm saying. So from what these initial employees were looking at from an ESOP's point of view. In a typical SaaS, this would have been an entirely reverse story, right? Like if you have seen 5 years back, when we started our company, so 20 people will get a bare minimum of at least 5%. Collectively 5%, for example, and the valuation is much lesser, right? Which means, so we diluted very less. All this value is generated by the employees first, and then investors later. Right now, the problem is the value is generated to investors and the founders, and for the employees, it became like an extreme small amount of peanuts to look at. So in seed round, you have 5% distributed among your founding team or top 20, 15 people team. And then by the time you go to Series A, your value will appraise very, very much so. And your skin in the game also kind of, goes up, right? When it is a very large entity with a less value and less amount of skin in the game, for these employees, there is no reason to stick longer. They would rather say, I'll rather be a big part in a small company than this minor at an early stages in a very large company. Some people still go ahead with it because they will get the brand. They will be part of, let's say, when the model release, they will be part of the authors as well. I've seen this is also playing out. Like people from Mistral have moved in a similar kind of manner. And there were a few companies like Adapt, these kind of startups in Valley, where they first release one model and authors from that model again move on for a better negotiation, saying that I'm just using this first 1 year to try to be part of a frontier model story, for example. Yeah. A lot of things are also kind of playing out very interestingly.
Cool. And now I'll just kind of take you back to the origins of Arya. Like if you were to, you started, post your education, and bunch of people who worked with you early on were probably in their first jobs, right? And now if you were to do the same in terms of the type of experience and the type of people that you're hiring, given where we are today in terms of how AI native companies look like. Because, I remember one of the things I absolutely loved about what you guys were doing was almost, this is all pre-GPT transformer days, right? When you guys started building stuff. And the hope was that there would be different kind of platforms for different verticals or for a different type of application. Now, if you were to start a similar type of company, had access to similar type of resources, what would you do differently? Or where would the challenges be very, very different now?
Yeah, so at the time when we started, nothing existed at that time, right? Like it's extremely vanilla game at that moment.
Right.
We started in 2012, 2013. So
13,
that
yeah.
was when deep learning paper was published, and we were working in deep learning at that time. So for us also, it was an initial discovery that, okay, this is something that happened, and this is something can be used to solve the problem that we are trying to solve. So there it was, we don't know whether we could solve the problem at that time, because okay, so we know that fundamentally we know how to do research, and that's how we started off, saying that here is what the problem and here is what we could probably use to solve that problem, right? And the way that we approached to hire a team at that point of time was nothing from a traditional book perspective. Right? So at that time, Indian universities were not teaching anything about neural networks.
Right.
We were the first to use, probably in India as well, to use something like Digits. Digits was an early framework where NVIDIA had to build deep learning models that you can run
Right.
on CUDA. Forget about ecosystem existing, right? So there was no university who's teaching us at that moment. We have taken a lot of researchers from US who published these papers as our pseudo researchers. We used to write to them saying that, here is what we implemented. Do you think this makes sense or not, and all that stuff. That was okay at that time because it was extremely new. There is no resource, no academic guidance. It was simply I coming up with idea and then saying, try to motivate people to do some research, and we were excited about it, and we continue to do research in those initial days. Now, at that time, it was okay to do that for the next, let's say, 2-3 years also, because the world is not going anywhere, right? It's just stagnant. Spend time and then do it. Now it's reverse. You would probably buy every hour that you could get with as much money as possible, right? Which means you would do things much faster. You would try to get there much quicker. If it takes $500,000, you spend $500,000 to get the model right? If it takes $10 million or let's say $100 million, you try to raise that money to get that vision right? Because now the speed of execution is so quick, and the biggest problem is most of the frontier companies have became an idea sucking machine at the moment, right? OpenAI became that extremely bad example, like what Microsoft was 20 years back.
Right.
Or maybe Amazon 10 years back as well, right? They suck every good idea to be part of the platform. And they learn the idea from the ecosystem, which is probably a bad way to build an ecosystem, right? In that case, then you would rather try to get there quicker, not to try to experiment and have the luxury of spending. You would rather say, I'll spend this $100 million to get there or not get there, right? In the next 1 year, maybe. So that's how I would probably think as well. I wouldn't say this is not right. I would say this is right. Maybe, how you spend, how you raise that monies. But I mean, I can also comment that this kind of guts and balls are not, even today, is not there in India, right? So that's what we will probably get PT'd with. But this strategy is exactly right in the current scheme of things. When you have a trillion valuation startup, I'm talking about OpenAI being $1 trillion valuation. Right now is $500 billion, but it doesn't.
Correct.
Maybe another 3 months they'll be $1 trillion. Right? They'll give another $100 billion commitment, and then yes, so they are $1 trillion pre-IPO startup. Anyways, you have a player like that who is executing and sucking up all the good ideas in the ecosystem. You need an execution power where you can defend your moat, not just to small players, but also to big enough players as well. This, if you are building a high scale, high value, high distribution worthy product, but otherwise this is what I would think of. This is what I would execute on. The other thing is also like doing extremely, simple, boring things in enterprise, which can also give you similar kind of valuation, very good moat, very good kind of stuff and all that, those things as well. So as when you know the enterprise market, you know that this is something that you could do. But the problem is realizing the PMF, building the platform, building the team. It's a different strategy. Again, you will spend 1 year, 2 years to get there, like how Glean did, for example, building the product for 3 years, not doing a SaaS kind of mode for every 1 year. You will spend time, you will spend the resources to try to build what exactly should be built for an enterprise with a vision of 10-year mode. If you are building a high scale, customer heavy, or more frontier kind of problem, something which can be competition to a lot of these frontier companies, there you will burn the money to get there. You will burn the resources to get there, and build the moat as quickly, as fast as possible.
But from the perspective of somebody who would want to join some initiatives like this, right? Like, for example, let's take a profile of a 25-year-old, maybe triple E engineer, or a maths, major. Why would he join Arya back then? And if you were to hire somebody of that profile, what would you do differently? Because like you described, maybe back then it was so new. There was a concept of learning. People are learning something. People are in research mode, are a lot more inclined into opportunities like that. So if I were to compare the 25-year-old engineer back then when you started Arya to, let's say, a new startup, would you find anything similar at all? But is everything different?
I think many things are different now. Many things are very, very different. At that time, we were looking at, as we didn't had a criteria to shortlist, right? Because typically, how do you look at hiring researchers? You will look at the papers published, the problems that they have solved. Is it close enough to problem that we are looking at? Is it in the same industry or not, right? Right now, I can do that. So that's how we are hiring researchers. So, we go through a bunch of PhDs. We look at what their PhD topic is, what did they publish, what was the defense about, how many papers did they publish, does the technique make sense, is it sound enough or not, is he the first author? That's the other thing. So is it the third, fifth, or sixth author in the paper? Then it doesn't make sense. We have a set of selection criteria now. At least we know that, okay, these are the things that we look at. This is what happens when maturity kicks off, right? So the system, the ecosystem matures. There is an intrinsic selection criteria that evolves over time. At that time, it was simply like, okay, math, you have done good paper in math, fine. You don't know what deep learning is. Let's learn together. So we hired people like that.
Was competition even on the cards, or this was purely based on passion, learning, and nobody
purely
really
passion? No. Yes. So and interestingly, what we did became for the first 3 years was we became an intermediary R&D bed for them to go to masters. So for many of them to go to masters. So that's what we kind of became. So we became, and it worked out for us as well. So they were not expecting high salaries. Neither we afford. So we simply say, here is what the expectation, but you will get a good chance to work on extremely good problems to work upon. They were okay with it. And later on, after 3 years, they went to, let's say, multiple universities in US. So we had at least 4 or 5 people who went to US in the last, in the first 2-3 years amount of time, for example. We became a very good R&D bed for them. So no other lab or no other startup in India is giving them that opportunity. No other university is giving them that opportunity to work on some problems like this. So that was a good mode. We told them that, you will get a problems that you will nowhere see in India. And you want to work on these problems, work with us, and then go and join masters after this, PhD after this. Good for you, right? So that works. So today we are we have a very different kind of selection criteria. As I said, we go through papers. Even for a bachelor's whom we are hiring, papers is mandatory for us, particularly for our research team. Our minimum paper criteria, even for a bachelor's guys, is at least 4 or 5 papers in a similar industry or in the same industry. And students have become really smart as well. So selective number of students, not kind of coming from any common background. So there is university in Manipal who's doing good work. We were very impressed with how they have done things. For example, there are a lot of students who are in second year old, for example, who are now joining us early as apprentice researchers, for example, right? They are also like the people who are really cream and really want to do things. They are starting early. They are starting in first year, second year, for example. In fact, we have a paper this December, which was accepted in Europe's, written by somebody who is undergrad in US,
Wow.
who just finished their first year, right? He was smart, and then we know what topic to work upon. We didn't necessarily had enough bandwidth to work upon it, and we said, here is a topic, here is what we should do, let's do it, and then let's publish. So the paper is accepted in workshop in Europe's. So that's how people have become really smart, and we like this concept of engaging early. So we are now we now have at least 4 or 5 researchers who are in college, who are working with us almost full time, who is kind of doing double time effort. They're doing ACADS, and also they're doing research work as well. But they are still producing good enough results for us also. So the strategy has completely changed. It's very, very different. If we are hiring anybody senior or full time, our criteria is like, as good as the Frontier Lab, because we are a Frontier Lab, and we are producing work like that as well.
So what kind of compensation do these people expect? I mean, the talent part of it is great, and especially somebody, the description that you gave about people who are in college and still working with you guys, what is the compensation they're looking for? Because these are probably, again, the well-funded large frontier model companies are on the lookout for these people anyway, right? I mean, the whole world knows, and I'm sure these people know their dollar value in some sense as well. So typically, if we were to talk about some numbers, and give me ranges, that's okay. What do they expect in compensation, and how would like an Indian startup look at addressing this?
It varies with geography to geography anyways, right? Like in Europe, it's a very different story. In India, it's a very different story. And in the UK, it's a very different story. So we have 3 labs now. So we have
But do you see
Paris Lab,
talent? Do you see talent parity in these 3 labs?
It is. Okay, so that's the other story. So Europe lab is primarily for our very strong academic work. Most of lot of math work, the Paris lab primarily works around the foundation model for tabular, which is what we released last week, and we are the state of the art at the moment. We do a lot of work around reinforcement learning, which is again involves a lot of math, like very core hard hitting math, for example. We are doing a lot of work around mechanistic interpretability and alignment. So those are the 5 areas where we do a lot of research. A lot of this academic talent is quite good in Europe because of how the programs had been for them. Even for our PhD, for example, so they would have done good amount of papers. Again, so if it is bad, it's bad everywhere, any which way. The bad is a common factor across the pool. I'm talking about the top cream pool, for example. I can find a lot of good guys who are strong in fundamentals, who are strong in academics, who have produced good research in PhD, worked on good problems in Europe more often, more easily than in India. In India, the problem is the guy is good, but their PhD concept is bad because the PhD concepts come from sponsorships, right? These sponsored companies are not producing or giving good enough problems. Or the professor is kind of got stuck into that loop where there are no good problems. Even the good students are solving bad problems. This is not helping the ecosystem, right? India is that problem, right? You may have a great talent, but they are not prepared to solve some good problems because intrinsically the industry is still evolving very, very slowly from that point of view. In Europe, it has evolved a lot. The corporate engagements with universities a lot. A lot of these problems are, real life or frontier. Each country has different reward programs for corporates to collaborate with universities, for corporates to fund PhDs, for example, which worked out really well for Europe. And we are now doing that to European market as well, right? So there we found a lot of good frontier, good academic talent who is very relevant to what we are trying to solve. In India, it's quite strong in the engineering side, right? Meaning we want to release a library, we want to build out a tool. Fantastic talent who can do a lot of engineering work, who can pull in things, who can get to an open source tooling, for example, really, really quick. It's just that today at time t equal to 0, probably Europe is better positioned than India
Okay.
from some of the things. But for these guys now, we are now giving them better problems to solve. That's why it's motivating for them as well.
So what about the compensation? What are the
Oh yeah,
compensation
okay.
expectations?
I was trying to skip the answer, but anyways. Okay. No, so to give you the ballpark numbers, right? So the guys whom we engage, who are still in university, we have a very standard program, which is AI academic research internship. They get a standard stipend of 25,000 per month. No matter if he's a first year student, second year student, doesn't matter. They work at any point of time, meaning during college, outside college, whatever it is. And then there is a bonus after that, meaning if you finish, let's say 6 months, there is a bonus. If you publish a paper, there is a bonus. Meaning we try to take in a lot, and then we say, okay, fine, it's not working out, this is not working out, and then we try to work more with the guys with whom we are working out. This, in some shape or form, I think few labs tried out. Okay, so the other alternative to these students today is they go to and talk to a professor in Canada, for example, right? There are, I forgot the name of the labs in Canada, for example. So there are few labs or few professors, for example, right? So the alternative for these students is they write to a professor. They tell them that, I'm this a student in college. I would love to work on a research project, right? Then professor, if they have some secondary, third, tertiary projects, they say, okay, fine, some student from India messaged me, so I'll just give him some low quality work. The problem would have been better, but they use these guys for data cleaning, data preparation, meaning you may get to work with the professor after spending a lot of time, but you may still be solving petty problems. So for them, we are like, okay, doesn't matter. So here is the frontier problems. You work on it. If it works out, we'll pull you out to full time, for example, and all that stuff. So it works really well. So we want to be fair to them as well. And for the full-time roles, it gets anywhere. The number ranges from 12 to 24. For freshers, for example, for experience, it can go anywhere between 18 to 36, something like that as well. Yeah.
So, but what about how do these people value ownership? Where does ownership come into the play? And also some of the things that you mentioned, especially at the university level. I think you can hire them until they publish a paper, right? And once they're kind of known, then now they are
Sure.
accessible to a wider audience. So what
Yeah.
other tools that you have? One obviously is ownership, but what, in terms of ownership, how would, have you guys tried something on trying to use this, and has it made a difference?
Yeah. So the way that we empower them is, so we try to work with. We have a lot of problems that we want to solve, right? And we are still a relatively very small lab from a scheme of things, right?
Right.
And we are part of a larger public entity as well, which means we have to justify a lot of things also. So which is why we give a free flow in terms of problems we solve. Currently, that plays two ways as well. Meaning, we also need to give enough bandwidth because these are fresh candidates, right? They don't know how to approach problem. They approach a problem in a very different kind of manner. We have to handhold them a lot to get to that initial paper, for example, but we try to keep them on independent topics, like so we keep 2-3 people on one problem and 2-3 people in one problem, like that. And we give them the entire ownership in terms of once it gets to some stage, then what to do, what are the problems to come out with. They will have more ideas, we will have more ideas, we will work with them to get to that to next phases, for example. So the way that at least we hope to make them stick or continue to solve in that direction is giving them more ownership, giving them more resources as well. Meaning, we started with probably 2 servers with us and a bunch of ad hoc GPU requests. Now we have dedicated GPUs for most of them to work upon, so they can feel free to use it as they want to burn it, and they continue to solve more problems, right? So it gives them like a complete control on how they are solving. We prepare the plans with them gaming the owners itself, so they will define how it goes, all that stuff. So it's a very kind of mini entrepreneurship kind of environment that we have. We want to have at least 4 or 5 like large problem projects completely driven by such team members, and then let the mantle go to next set of people, or take a mantle into expansion, all that kind of stuff. Um, to some extent, this worked out. Like, for example, Microsoft Research has been doing this for some time as well. They have PhD programs, they have apprentice programs to some extent. It did work out for Microsoft Research some time back. But again, so it depends upon, as we are a small size and we are more focused, we give them a lot of attention and get more successes from the team. Whereas for a very large organization, it's just a spreaded effort for them in which ways.
Cool. So let's come back to the acquisition itself. Just tell me whatever you can. What happened? How did it start? Who proposed first? Were you guys dating for a while before this happened? Just kind of walk me through, how the acquisition happened.
Yeah. I mean, this is almost a year and a half story now. Yes, almost a year and a half now. I mean, there was an organic and inorganic motivation for the acquisition. Organic motivation was we were scaling very well at that time. So we were growing almost 2x, 3x year on year. We were EBITDA 45%. We were highly profitable, very efficiently ran shop, and we were scaling. The organic thought process was one. I want to do some things on a new approach for a certain product, and the current product which is growing has to grow now to a new scale of things as well. So we needed a better distribution, better sales, more geographical expansion, and at the same time we want to focus on more product, more R&D as well, because that is the other thing that is missing. What has intrinsically happened was we did a lot of research in the first 2-3 years, and later on we never did research. It was primarily trying to commercialize what we did research at that time, which took a lot of time. So this is probably something that I kind of hated a lot, or at least kind of pinged a lot, in terms of we couldn't able to do research. Maybe we could have done a lot of things if we continued on that trajectory. But again, that's the reality of the ecosystem anyways. Neither we are coming from DeepMind, nor there are VCs who could give us billions of dollars. So it's just not the reality at that time, any which ways, right? So that's what kind of motivated us to say, okay, fine, let's find somebody or some partner who could now take our revenue scale to next phase, or product exposure to next phase. At the same time, we will get time in terms of doing some frontier stuff. Because this is the right time to do that. If some things have taken out of our plate, which is distribution, sales, revenue generation, and all that stuff, then we can focus on back to the labs and back to the product and all that stuff. That was the organic. And inorganic one was anyways, so investors had been with us for quite some time, so we want to give them some kind of exit structure so that there is liquidity that could be generated. So that was the initiation. And we went through a few cycles of conversations with many partners, and there was a lot of good supporting feedback from the investors as well, in terms of does this make sense or not, and all that stuff. But we realized that we are quite concentrated in the financial services space. We are quite concentrated in the enterprise space. That's a space where we could get maximum amount of value, because selling to one industry makes a lot of sense quite quicker. You could get the ROI quite quickly, whereas if there's other industry, then you'll have to figure out a lot of things, and also you will not be rewarded the value as we were expecting. Aurionpro came into the picture, so we liked what Ashish is doing. Ashish is Aurionpro CEO, for example. We liked the vision a lot. We were aligned with it. And we know that there's a lot of commonalities and common value that we could derive, and that's how this transaction kind of moved forward.
Fantastic. So what did it mean for your early employees, your team? Now, obviously, the cash compensation is one. Now you're part of a larger company, you're part of a listed company. Did any wealth get generated for them through your ESOPs, and are there any lessons through this process for you guys as founders on something that could serve as an example for other people? Anything that you can share about wealth generation for employees from this transaction.
Got it. Yes, it is actually. So the initial team that I mentioned, at least three people kind of stayed back with us even today. So initially we were about 6 people, meaning 50% team kind of
Right.
stayed back with us for the past 10 years, right? So that's like a good story from a percentage point of view, but it's just 3 people.
Right.
Not the founding team is what I'm saying. So
Correct.
including founding team, that's about 5. All 3 of them, including the next set of hires that we did. In fact, I think we are probably a black sheep story for the industry. So we never hired more than what is required. Our team was always, for the past 10 years until we exited, never crossed 20. It was within 20. At least our average age was always plus or minus 25.
Right.
So which means all of them are quite young. We never went beyond the board in terms of, we did going beyond the board to try to hire some very senior guys. It kind of backfired, or at least it didn't work out. Let me be a little subtly about it. Neither of whatever efforts that we tried to do that didn't work out. We came to a realization that this for the product like this, if you need that kind of people, you need a market which can support that kind of expense to get into, right? Like India is a very small market from that point of view. From a SaaS business or maturity also, it was quite small. If it would have been in US, then okay, fine. So you would have gotten better returns, better and all that stuff. Right. So we played out really well on being really efficient. We only raised 2 rounds. One was our initial pre-seed rounds from 2013. And right. Then we did a bridge in 2014. And then post that 15, we did it and 1 bridge later on. Our total amount that we raised was also much smaller. We could have done either ways. We could have raised larger monies, realize and go global, or burn that money to not realize the value. Right. We thought we want to build the right product to scale than scale to figure out the right product, which is what many people do. They scale first to figure out the right product. So that doesn't make any sense. It's just unnecessary trouble and loss of sleep and life anyways. So that's what we did. We were little comfortably growing. We had our own edges of Square in many times. We figured that out, and it was a smooth curve later on. Most of our initial team got rewarded really, really well. Like they were able to buy good apartments, kind of stuff. We may not have generated too many of them, but whatever people who have with us, they had good amount of exits. They were able to settle little comfortably now with the acquisition. So everything kind of double downs and grows very well. So that's the best thing to do for early employees. I think the only regret that probably I would have is I should have done this more amounts than what I could think of, and more people as well, so that more people could have able to get the benefit quite well. Meaning no point. So ESOPs is something like no point giving it back to investors. There is zero motivation for founders to do that. And it's completely and in value to give it to yourself as well. Meaning you put that pool to for the team members, right? So if it comes back to you, then that's not that doesn't do the justice to what the thesis is. And there is no point giving that back to investors. So for investors, you should not give more than a penny. What should be given? So everything else is good to be good to with the investors, but eventually in the game, investors we knows if it is for the team, it is for the team. So that's what has
absolutely
worked
no.
out.
I'm so glad that the outcome was very positive for all the people who stayed with you, because these are examples that we need of young minds getting into some early experimental stuff. Learning whatever they learn is one thing, but at the end of the day, if they generate wealth and are able to live a comfortable life, then it's a very good goal achieved. So I guess from what you are saying, learning is maybe you could have exhausted the pool, rather than just leave it floating.
Yes.
So people would have made a little more money. No, that's great. And I think, we need more examples, and I'm sure this is going to help you hire more people, because you've already done something where there are people who got some wealth, unlike paper wealth. They have got some real physical assets to show from whatever they have with their earned. That's a great thing. Now, continuing the discussion into more of a very generic AI and labor story, I want to hear your thoughts on a few things. One, many years ago, the thought process was AI will not take your job, but someone who knows AI will. Then it's kind of slowly changed it to AI may not take your job, but it'll take your salary. Now people are talking about AI will take some jobs, but will generate newer jobs. So what's your thought process in general as far as human labor is concerned? Are we seeing a shortage in some area and an expansion in some other area, or how do we kind of as general audience read this?
Yeah. I mean, the matter of fact is they will, or there is already the job compression happening in the market, right? It's not just factor to the economic growth any which ways. It's also factor to what's happening from an efficiency gain through the products that are being currently used, or projected efficiency gains that's going to happen with these products. I'm talking about
But
using AI
can we
products.
define
Yeah.
that type of job? What jobs are getting
Yeah.
compressed? Do you see across the board or some certain types?
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the back offices is very, very affected at the moment, right?
Okay.
Where do you see mass, huge population of jobs, right? Manufacturing, BPO,
Retail.
retail, for example. So these are like mass amount of jobs. Forget about the white
Correct.
collar jobs, right? So that's anyways limited in universe, any which ways. I don't think there is a threat to the top jobs that we have, like software engineers, for example, because there are more problems that are getting solved, more startups will come up, and all that stuff is happening. So the top layer is increasing from
Even
a
with all
job
the
pool
code
perspective.
generation tools?
With all, yes. Okay, what's happening is the fresh talent is now the least hired at the moment, right? Meaning the fresh graduates are probably the least hired from a hireability standpoint. Also because they are primarily service to do things like services related work, those kind of stuff.
Sure.
I think my thesis is that actually. So it's not that a data scientist is not getting a job. A data scientist is always getting a job, right? They will still get a job in the next few years as well. A high skilled labor will always have a demand irrespective of the market standards. The payability can vary, meaning they may get more, they may get less. There are two things happening. So 40 plus is getting into negative, and maybe 30, less than 30 is also getting into negative. Meaning in terms of number of hires is what I have generally seen from different numbers. Less people are getting hired after 45 because everybody knows that the better ROI is 35 plus, not 45 plus. And then what's happening with less than 30 is inexperience, productivity gains that happen with maybe two generations or 2-year-old hires is getting up, which is not motivating enough universities or enough institutions to hire more fresh talent in the market. Right. This is again coming back to BPO getting automated. That's where most of these fresh talent used to go. Right. So particularly in places like India, for example, all the fresh talent goes for BPO, backend services, which is getting automated, calling services, which is getting automated. These again, manufacturing is not a strong one for India anyways, but also the automation is not much in India anyways, right? As much as in China, for example. The job, it's not particularly to say that I have a slice of a pie which is big enough to say this is where the job cuts are. The slices are much micro in nature. A major density is happening in the services for sure. So
Sure.
It's a common theme that is happening in the industry at the moment. And does this continue? It will continue, right? You have things like, as critical as DevOps is getting extremely mission intelligence driven DevOps, which is also a massive pool of services in India has, right? So all Infosys TCS are system engineers, DevOps managers, AWS managers, this kind of stuff, which is getting automated. And you had another major nuanced skill was around security, cybersecurity space, which all the new tools are going to come in the next few months is going to be around that. You already had OpenAI security agent. I think day before yesterday, there was a Google security agent as well from Google also. These things will also get, fully empowered, if not automated, from that point of view. So job cuts is real. The talent crunch is going to be real, but also the number of problems is going to grow. Does that override the job crunch that is going to happen? Maybe we'll have to see in future how that goes too. Like dot com was probably a generational opportunity creation incident, right?
Right.
Because digitalization, software,
Correct.
incidentally opened up a large market of new software. Not like AI, right? So we are still opening up, but you don't need 100 people to solve a problem. You need 10 people to solve a problem. If that's what's the case, then even if you need 1,000 problems to get solved, not 10 problems in a generation. That has to pick up a lot, which means more entrepreneurs has to come out, more problems has to be discovered, more problems need to get solved very, very, very quickly, so that we can offset this negative trend. But that's quite hard. It's extremely hard to get there. And even in US, for example, most of the new jobs probably generated is around data centers, which is what the massive capex that went into that industry. Whereas in every other industry, it's kind of came down, right, in US as well. So the story is definitely not is real, which is AI is helping to increase the efficiency gains. Not as much as what the marketing buzz was, but it's still doing it, which is already impacting a lot of hiring processes that are there in the industry. It's very real. So you can spun the story in every way that you want. Reports like, there was some MIT report where 95% AI is not working in the enterprise. You can feel free to do it. But so it's the reality is that actually.
So what would you advise a 18-year-old looking to, get into grad school? Do people still focus on STEM? Is that the most lucrative segment?
Yeah.
When we were growing up, we had no options, right? You would either become, if you want to be wealthy and famous, you've got to become a doctor or an engineer. If you're not from a business family or you don't have a business background. Now with all these changes coming over, is for a 18-year-old, what would you recommend they study?
Yeah. I think they have to be more bolder than what we were, for sure, right? And as I said, so if a first year grad student is now able to publish paper and do things, if you're not in that stage, then there is intrinsically something is wrong in terms of what you're thinking. But
so
at the same time,
basically means you start way before grad school getting into all of this.
That's what I want to counter that as well. So don't burn your life for something which may or may not work out in future also, right? So I would say follow the passion, but try to have more passion for solving complex problems. Or try to be the excellency group, not the mediocrity group. We survived on mediocrity, or there were many generations who survived on mediocrity, right? Like 2000s to 2025 is probably the mediocrity delivered with consistency is what the software services industry is, right? So consistency, but not excellence, but just mediocrity doing back to back, and there is trillions of wealth created. Now mediocrity is not a product proposition, so which means nobody cares if you're solving the problem. If it is not efficient enough, it doesn't matter. I would probably tell them again and again that follow your passion a little bit more harder. It could be anything. It could be STEM. It could be music, gaming, healthcare, for example, energy, for example. You have more problems to solve for sure. What's happening with AI? Maybe next 2 years, 5 years. I'm not saying in the current state of things. At least what okay. So if our ambition was to create new ideas by the system, right? In the industry where we are, so the AI should be able to do it, such that I'm not doing all of that, and I can do it more often. With whatever team I have, for example. The moment when it happens, people are creating new protein structures, people are creating new chemical formulas, for example. People are going to create new research ideas. People are going to create new critique systems new defense systems, for example. So it's going to happen. Use that as an opportunity to try to say what you could solve, how big of a problem you could solve, and create value out of it. That's what I would say to all the new educations. And for the guys who was going into education system, like who is going to do education, I would say just focus on things what you could enjoy till you know the difference. So yeah, that's probably is a good idea.
No, this has been fabulous. Final stuff. What is your AGI timeline? And is our current architecture going us to? Is it going to get us there, or you are seeing alternates possible? Because it does look like everybody thinks that massive compute is one way of somehow getting there. Bro, would love to hear your thoughts before we conclude.
Yeah. So the entire OpenAI valuation story is SSI is going to happen. AGI is going to happen in the next 2 years, right? That's what Sam is selling to every investor, saying that I'll get to an AGI wherein I'll define the revenue model. I'm not that optimistic. To be precise, but again, so you can tweak the definition of AGI and say you're already here today, for example, right? Like LLMs were so-called AGI almost 12 months back, where people were saying, okay, fine, if you define AGI as a generalistic system, LLMs are generalistic systems. They can write poems, they can do math to some extent, they can do science theorems, for example. It's an AGI. So the definition has to change, which will probably come up from the value that it could generate. So I'm not so excited about a generalized intelligence. I'm very much excited about, let's say, a specialized intelligence for domain specific, for example, right? I don't need to have an AGI which can be the best doctor or the best engineer. If I can have the best engineer, I can do a lot of things with it, right?
Okay.
So getting there is quite important. In some industries, we may get there in the next 5 years. Maybe the industries are probably healthcare to some extent, yes.
And using the current architecture, or do you see newer innovations?
No, I mean, the architectures will change. So we moved from dense models to MOEs, and now we are going from MOEs to something else. But that architecture will evolve. So earlier there was a lot of focus around this was the approach. Now that has changed. The timeline that everybody is saying is we may get there one way or the other, because the entire ecosystem is now innovating and researching. If something works out, then the ecosystem is good enough to invest in that approach. Meaning, sometime, let's say in the next 2 years, there is another OpenAI, which is not OpenAI, which has proved that this can be scalable. Then the entire world will go after them to say, now get to AGI, right? So that reward cycle is enough in the industry right now. I'm just hoping it's not like 1980s, 1990s, where there was a massive AI boom and then burst after that, which was very similar to what current situation is. People compare this with .com boom. Maybe there is, I don't know. But at least from an AI boom, AI burst, this is very similar to 1980s, 1990s, for example. So maybe that's not happening, but hopefully we will get to some stage. But I think the systems are going to change every 1.5 years massively, with 2x in improvements, kind of stuff. With that cycle, next 5 years, we should see a domain-specific AGI for sure. If I have to call it as a domain-specific AGI, that's not an AGI anyways. If it is a domain-specific, it's not a general intelligence any which ways. But you will have domain-specific experts, which are the best in the industry. There is no human expert that can map to that expertise. Let me define it. Then it can happen for multiple industries in the next 5 years.
Hey, fabulous, man. This has been fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, both on your journey and stuff about people, and obviously to close with where AI is heading. I wish you all the best. And I hope whatever you guys are trying to build, continuing your decade-old journey from Arya into the current setup is a lot more successful. Thanks for doing this, and really, really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Pleasure being here.